Hello ladies and gentlemen, this is Jamel from Fantasy. Today we're going to be talking about Street's most recent update and I have to say it delivers. Now, prior to the title of this video, this is the game we deserve. This is actually the game we should have gotten at launch 2 years ago in 2006, February I believe of 2006, when Capcom released Street Fighter 5. Instead of releasing their bare bone game, they should have actually waited the 2 years. They probably, for financial reasons, couldn't do that, but they probably should have waited the 2 years, because this game right here, Street Fighter Arcade Edition, feels like the complete package. This feels like what we were promised. This feels like the complete game. It feels like the game we should have gotten at launch. That's what this feels like. They refined the UI to where, I mean, it's still pretty much the same. It just has a different color pattern to it, but this game has so much more to it. And I do have to give kudos to Capcom to staying with this game, giving it updates to refine the fighting, adding more content. There is a lot of content in this game now. There's a lot to do. It really feels like a game worth a $60 price tag. And the good thing is, this game isn't even $60. You can pick up the arcade edition for $40. Now, for people who already own Street Fighter 5, you can actually pick up the arcade edition, which unlocks all of the characters basically for $30. So you get it for a slight discount. Let me see if I can see that. Characters. You can also buy all of the characters separate, of course, but if you go into like the store, you can get the arcade edition, which basically unlocks characters from season 1 and 2, as well as the season 3 characters that's going to be coming out or trickling out later this year. Now, let's get into some of the changes that was made to this particular game. And like I said, this feels like a complete game. There were a lot of changes done to this game and a lot of stuff that was added to it. So on top of getting new characters like Sakura and Sagat and so on and so forth, Blanca if I'm not mistaken, and the chick that looks like Ed's sister, you're getting a more refined fighting system. One of the other things that was added too that I actually like a lot is the fact that you can now change your online name, your fighter ID. So if you created a fighter ID and you don't really care for it or something like that, like for mine's fighter ID is a little bit too long. I thought I would be able to change it at any time, but that's not the case. But it wasn't the case before, but now it is the case. You can go and actually change your fighter ID. Now, if you're going to use your fight money, it costs a lot of fight money. I don't know why Capcom would charge so much to change your fighter ID. I would assume that would be a little bit less, but it's not. It's actually a lot of fight money. But you can pay real cash in order to change it. That's probably what it is. That's probably why they did it. They want to do it to incentivize people to, spend real cash in order to change their fighter ID. But the fighter, you can change your fighter ID, which is cool, because you have a lot of people who may create a name and then maybe a year or two later they want to change that name, and now they're giving you the option to do that. Unfortunately, you do have to pay for it, which I'm not a fan of that. Now, you do get a bunch of new stages. Well, when you buy the arcade edition, you get all of these stages already with the game. I don't have the arcade edition. I just have the arcade update. But I'm just letting you know what you get with the arcade edition if you were to purchase the arcade edition, which I do recommend. It's a really good fighting game, and for the amount of content you're getting in that edition, it is something I could definitely recommend. So you do get all of these stages, which is a lot of stages. You get a decent amount of stages, which look very, very beautiful. You get a bunch of alternate costumes as well for the different characters. Not all of them. You don't get all of the characters. There are some costumes that are purchase only, meaning you can only get it by buying it. But there are a lot that you do get with the arcade edition. You do get access to, again, all of the characters from season 1, 2, and the upcoming characters of season 3, as well as some alternate costumes for those characters as well. So you are getting a lot in this particular game, and I do like that. I do like that a lot. Now, in addition to the characters and the name changing, you do have access to another story mode. Now, for me, what it did was it actually resetted all my story modes. Like, I don't know if it changed it because I haven't had a chance to go back and play it, but it looks like it put me back at 0 when I know for a fact I've done all the story modes for all of the characters. Now, you do have access for free for Sakura if you don't have the arcade edition. If you're like me, who hasn't bought the new characters yet, they are giving you a temporary access to Sakura for the time being, a limited time only kind of deal. I don't know how long they're letting you play with Sakura, but you can play with Sakura. And not only can you play with Sakura both on online training and stuff like that, but you can also do her story mode. So that's pretty cool. I haven't had a chance to do it with her yet. I have played with her. She is really good. They really did a great job with Sakura, so that's really cool. So on top of an update, they actually gave us a new character, albeit it is temporary for the time being until you purchase the arcade edition, if you haven't bought the actual arcade edition yet. But still, that's still really cool. That just gives us a chance to try her out, to see if we want to purchase her, or if we even want to upgrade to that new edition. Now, on top of, you know, the story mode and stuff like that, and basically resetting the story mode, if I'm not mistaken, when you do the story mode, it will give you the fight money again. So that's a good way to kind of re-up on fight money and use the fight money to unlock certain things too. But now you actually have a proper arcade mode, and this is sick. This is so sick. So as you can see, I played the first one, Streetfighter 1, and basically what it is, it's 4 battles, and they try to use the classic characters that was only in Street Fighter 1. They try. And then you have like the Street Fighter 2 edition, which is 8 fighters, and you have Street Fighter Alpha, which is really cool, Street Fighter 3, Street Fighter 4, and then Street Fighter 5, and each one has like a set amount of characters. And what they try to do is they try to fill it with characters that were in that particular game, which I think is so cool, and it just makes for different arcade experiences too. And I like that a lot. That's really cool. It gives you a lot more content because you can go through each of these with all of the new characters, which this game now has a decent amount of characters. So to not only go through all of these arcade modes and get the different kind of arcade endings for the different characters and stuff like that, which again is a lot of content, you do have a lot of characters to do that with. Now, like I said, you do have access to new stages and stuff if you buy the arcade edition, as well as this new UI. As you've seen that UI, how it just was, little orb thing wasn't there before, but now you could get access to all these stages, like I said before. Oh no, I backed out. Sorry about that. Let me go back into it. But yes, this is the game we deserve. This is the fighting game we deserve. This feels like the fighting game that should have came out 2 years ago. Like, if you think of what NetherRealm is doing with their Injustice and Mortal Kombat, you're getting a story, you're getting an arcade edition, you're getting an in-depth fighting game with a nice cohesive online mode as well. And you're getting the crypt thing and the gear system in Injustice, so you're getting a lot with that on day one, and that's what this feels like. This feels like all of the content you would get in the NetherRealm game. It's just sad that it took 2 years for it to come out. Now with this, you are now have access with the arcade edition. You will have access to all these characters. Like I said, you do get access for Sakura for free for the time being. But not only that, as you can see, the background has changed. They changed the UI in the background to make it brighter and more vibrant. It looks really cool. It really does. I do like the way it looks. Now, on top of that, they've also refined and added new V triggers, which further refines the fighting in this particular game, which we will get into that right now. So now you can actually change between 2 different V triggers, which is really cool. So I'm gonna use Ken for the time being, and his first one was a heat rush, which basically he does a quick dash that ignites his feet on fire. And the quick dash can be used to fake out people to where you can get in a combo, or just fake them out to where they go into defense and you can do a quick grab on them. At least that's what I always used it for. But not only that, it added damage to his kick attack. So when you do the tornado kick with Ken, it actually added more damage and stuff like that. But that's pretty much all it did. But now they gave him access to his Shoryuken, which is one of Ken's most iconic moves. He should have had that from day one. That's how I feel. And that's what they kind of use the V trigger for, the second V trigger. They use the second V trigger to kind of give people traits they should have had day one, traits that were staple to these fighters. For example, Bison has his Psycho Crusher with his second V trigger. That's something Bison should have had at day one. That's a staple of his character. But not only that, it also shows the date. So as you can see, it says today's date, which is January 17, 2018. When I was playing this yesterday, it actually said January 16. So every day that date actually changes, which is really cool. And for people who are recording, it basically gives them a date stamp, a time stamp for when they're basically playing this game. So that's also what I think I like a lot about that too. That whole UI is really cool and really innovative, and you can tell it's gonna change every day. So that's really cool. It'll keep it fresh that way. But now, the thing I noticed too is you may not be able to see it in Ryu's health, but the thing about the V trigger, now the fighting is the same. Let me just put it that way. The fighting is the same, but that's not a bad thing, because over the updates that it's had, especially when you compare it to when the game first launched, the fighting is way more refined now. The fighting is actually really good now, and with the new V triggers, it adds for more juggling, so you can really get in some really solid combos now. So whoops. So you can get in some really solid combos now, do some real decent damage and things like that. But now you also have the added effect of the V triggers, which will add to those combos and can be used as combo finishers, or just add to those combos or extend the combo and things like that. So that's really cool. Now the thing about, especially with Ken's particular V trigger, is that it doesn't give him more damage. He doesn't hit harder. Now his V trigger is a Shoryuken, and it ignites his hands on fire, but his hands being on fire doesn't give him more damage. It doesn't, when he does his Hadouken, it's still a regular Hadouken. When he punches you, it still hits the same, but it just gives him the access to his Shoryuken. Now his Shoryuken doesn't need to be up close and personal. You don't need to be on him when you do it. You can be at sweep range. So like from right here, you can do it, and what it does is it actually sucks them into the Shoryuken. Now, if you're up close, and of course you're gonna hit them up close, and it does do a decent amount of damage. But again, you can have some range. You don't need to be all up on them in order to hit them with it, and I like that, because it's like a vacuum. He's spinning in the air, and as he's spinning, he's sucking you in like a vacuum to do more damage. I'm just saying this because I like Ken, but that's freaking awesome, and I like it. I like it a lot. Now, in terms of his attacks, you can't really see the health, but that one punch does the same as if you have your V trigger active. Now as you can see, his hands is on fire. But that same punch still does the same amount of damage. Again, you can't see it, but when you play the game, you can try it out for yourself. It does the same amount of damage whether he's in V trigger or not. Now same for his Hadouken. His Hadouken still comes out the same. It doesn't do extra hits, it doesn't do extra damage. In fact, all of his attacks are pretty much the same. They don't do any extra damage. So his hands being on fire is only to let you know that your V trigger is active and that you have access to the Shoryuken, which again is good for combo. That's actually good for a combo finisher. So you can bump, and then finish it off with a Shoryuken for some nice combos. And then with Ken, you actually have access to 3 Shoryukens. So that's 2, and then you can do it a 3rd time before having to get your V trigger back again. Now it does go down. You're losing it basically, but that's okay. That's okay, because you're going to be able to get at least 2 of them out, because as you can see, the V trigger goes down really slow, and it starts off with him doing a Shoryuken, so that's already 1 out the door already. But you do have like a lot of time to set up for another Shoryuken. Whether you be able to get a 3rd one out depends on how fast you're able to set up for the Shoryuken in this particular game. Now the Shoryuken can also be used as an anti-air, so if the opponent jumps into the air, you can catch them. So if they jump into the air, you can catch them with the Shoryuken. It'll suck them in, It's a vacuum that brings them close. Now you can't be too far. You got to be like within sweep range in order to hit them with it. But it's really cool, and that's not even including like his ultra or his enhanced Shoryuken. So that's really cool. It's just with Ken, again, it's a combo finisher. But with other characters, like with Vega has combo extenders with his V-trigger. Sakura has combo extenders with the V-trigger. So it really does add a new dynamic to the already refined fighting system in this particular game, and I like that a lot. So again, this just feels like the game that we deserved. It feels like the game we should have gotten in day one. Refined UI. Love the UI. It looks really good. The matchmaking in this game could be a little bit better, but it's still a solid matchmaking. You can change your fighter ID now, so if you pick one you don't like, that's fine. You just either need to, you know, pony up that money or have enough fight money to change it. You have a bunch of different characters. You have a bunch of different stages. You have the arcade and a bunch of different arcade options. You have the story mode for each character. You have not just the story mode for each character, but the general story mode, which is the overarching story mode of all of the characters. You have the versus mode. You have the challenges, which the challenges are really cool. You have the daily challenges as well. You have your training. There is a lot in this particular game, and I feel that it's definitely worth the buy. With all of the content they're adding, with everything Capcom is doing right now, this is honestly the game we should have gotten at day one. This is the game that consumers deserve, and with a $40 price tag, I absolutely recommend this game. Now, for people who's buying it or picking it up in January or February 2018, you got a real solid choice, because you can either go with this game, which I do recommend, or you can go with the Dragon Ball Z Fighter Z game that's coming out as well. Both games are really solid. If you've seen my last video, you've seen that I have some issues with the beta for the Dragon Ball Fighter Z, where I wasn't really able to play it, unfortunately. Because of server issues, unfortunately, and hopefully that's not the issue when that game launched. But both are really solid fighting games. I would probably give it to Street Fighter. I think Street Fighter is the better fighting game, only because of the sheer amount of content it has, the refined fighting it has, and the options with the V triggers that it has, as well as the arcade ladder and the story mode and so on and so forth. So with that being said, if you like this video, smack that like button. If you hate this video, smack that dislike button. If you want to talk more about Street Fighter 5 Arcade Edition and your experience with it, what you think of it, is it good, is it bad, is it ugly, is it pretty, let me know in the comments below. And remember, your life is a fantasy.